Welcome to the BudsnReality Show, the number one Liberty podcast in Detroit. I am Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say, and I am here with my part-time co-host at this point, Mr. Ben DeJong. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I feel really honored, following up the great Michael Rectenwall. I mean, holy shit, talk about not easy to follow. So glad to be back on. It's been a minute. I mean, shit. I mean, we've got enough to talk about, so I'm ready to go.
There's always something to talk about, but let's get one thing out of the way real quick. Mr. Andy Coons. Andy, how you doing, buddy? Thank you for actually not thank you so much, but thank you so much for stealing my part-time co-host to get his show back with you, my friend. I'm totally calling it out. I love it, but I'm so glad you guys have gotten back together. You got the band back together. Let's actually start with that because, well, why not?
Yeah, no, let's do it. So, Andy Coons and I had a show called We Love the State, which is a great tongue-in-cheek for a libertarian podcast. Um, Things kind of fell out just because of just life in general. It's really hard to, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here to maintain a weekly podcast, when you're running family and a business and work and everything else going on. But we've kind of refocused, kind of got the band back together, hitting the ground running. We had some fun at the last Libertarian convention up in the UP, and looking actually to record another episode this week. But man, I don't know how you do it. I give you big props. Like, I tried to go solo after the band broke up, and man, I had to get really loaded before I could sit in front of a camera and try to talk for any amount of time. So I mean, granted, you do have some amazing guests, and that's awesome too. But there is something that just there's a comfort when you have another voice, even if it's somebody that only like Robbie the Fire, on Part of the Problem. I mean, he probably only talks 20-30% of the time, but you've got that sounding board that's always there to give their input and their feedback, and it just really takes the load off when you've got somebody else. And so we're super geeked to be back, and maybe fingers crossed and stay tuned, we can do some joint podcasts with you in the future. We've got some great candidates running for office here in Michigan, and man, if we could do a live show, hint hint, that could be awesome. I'm just gonna, a little sidebar, and I can't remember the name of the podcast offhand, but I found a libertarian podcast in Indiana that I absolutely loved. They had great dynamic, and I remember going to a live show and just being like awestruck, almost like that, like I got to meet my heroes kind of a thing. And if we can do that for our listeners who are like rabid fans, the great, ride or die people that we both have listening to our podcasts, and we can do a live event and like hang out afterwards, even if it's just a handful of people that are like, man, I listen to every week. This is so cool to be able to meet you. Man, that's everything, in a podcast world. Because a lot of times we just sit behind a camera and we don't actually get to, talk to the audience in real time. So that's what I would be super excited about if we were able to do a live show.
I would absolutely love to do a live show with you guys. I think what you guys were doing and bringing it back is actually great. You guys definitely gelled. You did your thing. I'm a little jealous because he stole you away from me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm so glad you guys did that and whatnot. It needed to be done because I could tell, like, I knew you didn't like to do it solo. I won't do it solo. Nobody wants to hear me talk by myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, you just kind of gotta, you knuckle up and do it. But it's not my favorite thing to do. I've literally done 2 or 3 shows by myself in 3 years. It's not something I like to do. And I totally understand that from your standpoint, because like you're talking to no one. You have your little notes in front of you and you're kind of like, yeah, but whatever, but you're talking to no one. And so like when you post that show and then no one listens, or maybe some people listen and not a lot of people listen, it's like you're talking to no one. You're like, you kind of cringe. You say whatever. Like, kudos to the people who can do that by themselves, though. Seriously, like, good for you. Like, hardcore golf clap. Like, that is great. I
But
can't do it.
also something might be wrong with you. Like a little touch of the narcissism. Like if you can sit in front of a camera and just stare at your own face for even 30 minutes and just talk, like you might need some therapy might be in your future.
But I mean, some people are just good at that though, and they do it, and good for them. Like, kudos to them, you know. But to bring this show in, I have to ask you something, Mister DeJong. Do you hear that? Can you hear that? Do you hear what's coming from afar?
It sounds like a money printer.
And you know what else it sounds like? Boom, 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 boom,
Maybe
boom,
a couple
boom. Da-da!
bombs.
Generals gathered in their masses. Bennett, just like witches at black masses. Yeah, we're going into this real fucking hardcore, dude. It's war. It's war. And it's more war, baby. And I don't mean that in a good way. I don't want to sound excited about it, but this is where we are at as a nation, as a people, as a outsiders looking in and as insiders looking out. War's on the horizon. We're not talking about any war. We're talking about World War III. And I don't feel like we've been, talking about it enough. But now it's come to a point where, like, it's going to come to fruition. It's happening right now. Iran has attacked Israel. Israel is about to be on the rebound per se. They're going to go and attack Iran. And in the meantime, we have a war with Russia in Ukraine, and on top of it, China and Taiwan is looking a little bit saucy too. Holy shit, dude! Like, it's all
Doesn't it
coming.
feel like you're definitely, I mean, if we were back, in the late 20s, early 30s, and the drum beats were happening, like it feels like we're living in that kind of that moment, right? Like all of a sudden Germany, and annexes Austria, and then goes into, the Czechoslovakia, and that we're living in those type of moments. And we saw how this plays out. Like they say, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Sometimes it rhymes really fucking close to repeating. And man, the playbook is just like, you can tell that there's a reason they don't teach real history in public schools because we're living in it. This is what our grandkids are going to be reading about, is this moment right here. And it's funny because I remember reading history books, and it's amazing how fast they get from the Great Depression to World War II. And they don't talk about all the steps in between. It's just like, oh, there was a Great Depression, the banks collapsed, FDR saved everything, and then Germany invaded Austria or whatever it is. And if we kind of rewind the clock back to 2008, because I think, things really kind of started in our current situation, current day. I mean, you could rewind that back further and further, but 2008, massive bank bailout, huge bank. And then, there was protests. And then next thing you know, you've got, they dial up the racism and the bigotry and the 0% interest rates. There was just kind of a bleeding dry of the middle class since 2008, and just sucking all that income to the top 1 and 2% of the ultra rich and the ultra connected, and the government connected individuals. And then COVID was the perfect cover to paper over the incoming disaster that was inevitable from 10 years of 0% interest rates. And so they papered over that collapse. That was inevitable. And just so happens there was a worldwide pandemic that they got cover for to paper over their losses. And what do you know? We're back again. Now the recession is going to be 1,000 times worse. And what do we have on the verge? A world war to paper over those losses. And so I mean, was it Smedley Bunker or Smedley Butler that said every war is a banker's war?
Yes.
Here's your sign.
Well, I mean, and you hit the nail right on the head. And so, like, when people talk about, historical things and shit like that, when it comes to like recessions, economy, war, our generation was duped hard. If you're a Gen Xer and or an older millennial, because you kind of got to lump us in there, because the older millennials weren't necessarily, the millennials that people speak of,
Well, they
because they're
talk.
kind
I just saw that. I think that we're technically lumped into Xennials or something like that. It's kind of like the or also known as the lost generation. It's that like 77 to 85, which doesn't fit into the narrative, but we don't identify with anybody else. And it was kind of cool to be like, because I identify probably more with millennials just because I'm right on that cusp.
I identify more as Gen Xers because I'm one of those people who had my ass beat when I did something wrong and learned some respect because of it. Um, and also, outside of that, when it comes out of your childhood, like, when 2008 came and the big crash came, I was 28 years old. Um, I was just graduating school. I went to radio school at Specs Howard, School of Broadcast Arts, which is now the Specs Howard School of Media Arts. Um, but like the fact of the matter is that we were trying to become adults in a time where there were no jobs. The banks were insolvent at that point. Not, I don't want to say insolvent, but like they weren't giving loans to people unless you were rich. And if they did give you a loan, you got hammered with like 30% interest. And that doesn't say like that doesn't count if you had bad credit. That was just the way the loans went. Okay. You couldn't find a job, you couldn't make any money. Oh, and by the way, there was all this war happening, which we were lied to about the entire thing. Like the people who say, like, hey, you guys don't trust the government. Well, there's a reason why we don't trust the government. Is because the biggest war of our particular lifetime was based off lies. Like the Iraqi war and the Afghanistan war were based off of bullshit. And we have all the receipts to prove that now. So when you're coming at us with like all this Ukraine shit and all this Israel shit, us Gen Xers and like older millennials and people like us are like, no, this isn't how this is happening. This isn't how this is working. One way or another, you guys did this and you're trying to pawn this off on us, and we're not having it no more.
Yeah, we're not
This
playing
is
this game. And how do we that my concern is I think the memory of the US populace in general is maybe a year. It just seems like people forget so fast what's been done in their name over the last 10, even just 10 years. And I don't know I mean, I think social media plays into that. Our education system plays into that. It's always about the next thing, or what's happening today. And it's just an amp up of like, don't look back, always look forward, or always look at, not even look forward, like always just look now. Like people don't even look at what's going to happen or what has happened. It's all about today. And that's my biggest concern is because we have a roadmap. Like they're using the same plans from not that long ago. I mean, we were told we had to be in Afghanistan because that's where Al Qaeda was. That's where Osama bin Laden was, and he never was there. Or maybe he was there for a brief moment. We had to be in Iraq because they had weapons of mass destruction. It didn't happen. We had to be in Syria. We had to be in Lebanon. We had to be in like all of these countries. We've lost, 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 lost. I mean, we haven't won a war since World War II. And how many wars have we been in since World War II? So it's not about winning, it's about money laundering. and people need to just wake up and understand that this is not a war that we need to win. That's never been the purpose. And so they were like, that's one of the frustration things that I get even with Andrew Napolitano's show, Judging Freedom, which everybody should be listening to because it's, brilliant when it comes to, current state, and especially comes to wars. But he has all these military people, and it's like, man, the failings in Afghanistan and the failings at the Trump rally and the failings in Iraq. These aren't failings. These are done on purpose. It's just about bleeding people dry. It's about enriching the rich at the top of the ladder who are connected to government. And I wish people would wake up to that fact. This is not it's not a bug in the system. It's what the system's built for.
Which is exactly what Israel is doing. They've been doing it for decades now, and Ukraine at this point is like, Osama bin Laden's great dream was to bleed America dry, and to a point he kind of did that. But the ones who are really bleeding America dry are Israel and Ukraine at this point.
And the banking system.
And that's because the banks will literally fund both sides of every war. We've seen it a million times now. Like in our lifetime, we're both in our mid 40s. Both of us are, we're in our mid 40s. And in the United States.
And you wouldn't know it from looking at us because we are like just specimens of genetic purity.
Well, I mean, it depends.
And I say that wearing a German hat.
My beard or not. And my bald head. That I will not take my hat off right now. But anyways, like seriously though, like Ukraine has bled America dry now for the past 3 years, almost. Israel has been bleeding America dry for decades now. And that was the bin Laden ultimate dream is we will bleed America dry and they won't have any more money. The problem
that was the tactic that the U.S. had when the USSR was in Afghanistan, is to fund the Afghanis to bleed the USSR dry. And they just flipped the script. And that it's just crazy.
To a point they kind of did. The USSR actually backed off of Afghanistan. Like USSR
way faster than we did.
That war because of the USA's involvement. We are the ones who are funding. Dude, like, let's put this into perspective. The United States was funding Osama bin Laden during that. Straight up. He was the ringleader of that whole thing during the Afghan-Russia war, and the United States government was funding him. And at the same time in the 80s, and I brought this up on many different shows, during the 80s at the exact same time, the United States was funding Iraq against their war against Iran, which conveniently enough was funded by Israel on the other side. Israel was funding Iran in the 80s. Israel was giving them money and weapons in the 80s, and now they're at war with them. I don't know how to make this any more like real or relevant or anything like that. This shit is a game to them. They are going to fund every side of everything because they're never going to lose. They're going to keep the defense contractors happy. They're going to keep the military industrial complex happy. They're going to keep our enemies happy because just like in Afghanistan, and this is what a lot of Americans get sour about, but like Americans had to make deals with the enemy in Afghanistan to put up bases in Afghanistan. And when I say make deals, we were giving them money and weapons in order to put our bases up in their country. So when the Afghanis were literally shooting at, American soldiers, they were most likely shooting at American soldiers with American weapons or, weapons bought by American money.
Yeah, I think everybody needs to realize if you hear industrial complex, that's funded by the banking system. So there is not an industrial complex without the banking system. So pharmaceutical industrial complex, military industrial complex, put any name to it when it's a giant funnel for money, the banking system backs it. And so I think sometimes even Republicans get so like stuck in the weeds of like, oh, the pharmaceutical industrial complex is making all this money. And yeah, they are for sure, but they're bankrolled by the monetary system. Like, I think we've talked about this before. Like, you cannot fix any of these problems until you fix our financial system. The root of all evil is the Federal Reserve and the US Treasury. And until you break that, until you get back to real money, sound money, these problems, these symptoms, whether it's pharmaceutical, war, um, Green New Deal, all of that shit is all funded by the same system. And it's a money transfer system. I know Russell Brand um, quotes this a lot from Julian Assange, and I've never been able to find the direct quote, but he says that the purpose of government is to transfer public money into private hands. And that's exactly I mean, look throughout history. That's exactly the purpose of government is to transfer public money to private hands. And we're living in
Which
it on
we've seen it.
steroids.
We've seen it time after time again. I don't want to keep bringing up our generation, but we've been through so much in our generation that it's hard to not bring up. Like you hit the nail on the head. Like, we could go all the way back to the 90s, right? In the late 90s, we had the dot-com bust, right? Or the dot-com bubble burst, and shit hit the fan and things were a little bit chippy for a while. And then all of a sudden, Rumsfeld gets on TV and was like, yo, the Pentagon just lost, $2.3 trillion. And then the very next day after that, boom, the Twin Towers go down, right? Like all these things escalate into another war, right? And right now what we're seeing is exactly that. So within the last week, especially within 5 days, the Dow took two massive hits. And the second hit came because the big buyers started selling. And when the big buyers start selling, something's on the horizon. There's no sugarcoating this. There is a science to this. And if you want to look back to 2008, like there was a time where before that the economy was doing quite well, and then the big buyers sold. We're here. The big buyers have sold, and now all of a sudden we are coming in with another big, massive war. Whether it be in the Middle East, whether it be in Asia, whether it be in all of it, it's here. And there's no turning back from this. As we speak right now, Russia has ships in Cuban waters. They have warships in Cuban waters, just licking their chops, waiting for their moment.
And on top of that, we got Russia and China ships that are right off the coast of Alaska. This is this whole thing.
There's planes. They have warplanes. They're flying them within like just a matter of a couple hundred miles of the coast of the United States, which is Alaska. Which would be considered
the Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. It's like you're going to surround us. Well, we're going to push into your water. I mean, that's what this is. I would not be surprised if all of a sudden China or Russia or both say that they're going to create a forward military defensive base in Cuba and installing, defensive missiles that could launch offensive strikes if need be, because that's what we're doing with Finland, with Ukraine, with all of the Baltic states that are surrounding Russia. And they're going to say, listen, you're going to do it on my border. I'm going to do it on your border. And we'll see what happens. I mean, because we don't have a president right now. We have what's that funny movie with the dead guy?
Weekend at Bernie's?
Weekend at Bernie's, yeah. Like that's been the perfect meme for this presidency, especially in the last year. And he's not making decisions. And so you have warmongers. I mean, last time Cuba, 1.0, we had someone that with a strength of character like, JFK that could actually stand up and say, yeah, I'm going to make the phone call. We're not doing this. I'm calling, Brezhnev, and we're going to stand down because I know we both agree that we don't want a nuclear holocaust. We don't have those people. We have Raytheon and Lockheed in charge. They're not going to step down. They're not going to make a phone call. They don't even have a person who could make the phone call over to Russia to say, let's talk. Let's negotiate. I'll pull my missiles out of here. You pull your missiles out of here, and let's de-escalate. They don't even have the person to make the phone call. And so all they can do is keep their foot on the gas because that's all they've ever known, because it's all that makes them profit.
I'm actually glad you brought up Lockheed Martin because with the latest financial crash that just happened, Lockheed Martin stock is fucking booming, dude. They're fucking jamming right now. So
We
hey,
just sent another carrier group over to Israel.
let's just call a buck right now. The war machine is working, and this is exactly what they want right now. This is exactly what they want. This is exactly what they need. This is exactly how they're gonna get themselves out of quote unquote this financial bust that is happening right now in the stock market. War brings in big business. It only brings in big business for them. We will suffer as a people, which is something we should talk about because, like, with war, does the economy get better? No, it doesn't at all. As a matter of fact, it's going to get much worse. There's going to be not only is there going to be another massive inflation coming, there's going to be shortages. And I'm talking shortages on not only like basic necessities, we're talking food.
We're
A lot
talking
of the food that
price controls.
yes, all of it is going to happen. This is something like, when people like us are talking about like localization and decentralization, this is why it's important, is so you don't get caught up in this shit. Um, it's going to happen. Like when the war really jumps off, there's going to be shortages. There's going to be inflation. There's going to be a total disarray in our whole climate as a people. But and I don't mean that by climate shit as quote unquote. But like dudes and dudettes, nothing good is going to come out of this except for the elites laughing themselves into the banks while we're getting bent over with inflation and shortages. Like think about last time. Like remember when we went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan and all that shit from 2000, and until now, like it's still present. Gas was $4 a gallon then, which was a
Well,
lot of money.
I've been kind of looking at a lot of the like late 70s, early 80s. We had all of a sudden the de-dollarization from gold. The gold standard died and the money printers just went on hyperdrive. And there was gas lines around gas stations. You would have to wait 2 hours to get gas at prices that were 10 times more than you had paid the week before.
Right.
And there was price controls, which means that anything on the grocery shelves at your local Meijer, your local Walmart, they were empty because of price controls. And they're going to do it again because they're going to spend again. That's all they have. They can't cut rates. We are already at record low rates. And if, they're going to bring us back down to zero, and zero is not going to be good enough, which means they're going to have to go negative, just like Japan did, which means that they will pay people to buy their debt. And then we have BRICS. I mean, the BRICS alliance is growing
Yes.
left and right.
Yes.
And there are countries that are just dumping dollars because they know the end of the American empire
Well, let me
is
interrupt
right
you
around the
real
corner.
quick. Like, we're not just talking countries that are leaving the American dollar. We're talking African countries like Zimbabwe, Ghana. They're going back to the gold standard. It's happening. I saw that on Gold Telegraph. Like these smaller countries are leaving the monetary system, the global monetary system, SWIFT, whatever you want to call it, and they're going back to gold because they know what the United States is doing right now is not sustainable. And when African countries are jumping ship, y'all better wake up. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, and this is
Because
what Gaddafi tried this, but he tried it solo. And that was his biggest downfall is he tried to do this by himself in Libya. And you can't push back
and
against the
Obama killed him.
American empire.
That was
And
Obama,
Obama
right?
killed
Obama
him.
killed him. Yes.
Obama killed him. But all of a sudden, when you've got China and Russia supporting these countries to dump the dollar, the empire collapses. And that's what we're watching real time is the U.S. empire is in default and it's in decline. And the only thing it can do is two things. It can break apart or it can war. So you have two choices. So, and these were the choices that faced the USSR. That and was it Gorbachev? And they were like, oh, we've got protests in this Baltic nation. Should we send to the tanks? And he said, no, I'm not going to send to the tanks. And we have an American empire that's in the same situation. And we do not have a leader who is going to say, no, I'm not going to send to the tanks. We don't have a leader, period. And, that's, I think, the biggest issue right now is it's the fact that they want to kill Trump because he may say, no, I don't want to send to the tanks. Because that could be the end of the empire. And the military, that cash cow, they want to keep the gravy train going. And Trump presents a potential threat to that. Not an actual threat, but a potential threat to that. And they will make sure that doesn't happen. So we've already seen an attempted assassination by the state. We can all agree that was by the state. They're trying to spin it now that it was Iran, which is so fucking hilarious. So hilarious. They send the ships to attack Iran, and then after they send the ships, let's claim that this 20-year-old guy from Ohio or wherever he was from they traced his phone to the FBI building in DC, and they're like, no, it was Iran. Like, I mean, you have to be brain dead to accept that narrative. I mean, the bombing of the Nord pipeline and claiming that was Russia, I mean, is easier to accept.
That's more believable.
Yes, more believable than this 20-year-old working for Iran. I mean, just, oh, my word, it's hilarious. And it's sad that there are people that are going to eat that full on. But this is, we're seeing it in real time. And I really hope that enough Americans say, fuck no, we won't go. Because that's really what it comes down to. Because we do not have the ability to make enough ammunitions, and we don't have the bodies to support. And that is the one thing that I am so supportive of the woke movement is the narcissistic, selfish individuals that it's produced are not going to go die in Iran. They're not going to do it. And their parents, they're coddling, sensitive, I don't care what gender you are, I'll love you, I'll love you and give you an allowance until I die. They're not going to send their kids to die in Iran either. And thank God for that. We do have kind of that silver lining, that light at the end of the tunnel, because these selfish, narcissistic fucks, they're not going to go just kill their kids for a foreign government.
Which they shouldn't. We need to get out of this mindset that we need to send our children to die for other countries. That needs to go away real quick. What has Ukraine done for America, and why are we supporting them? But what has Israel done for America? Why are we supporting them?
That's the woke movement, though. It's been about the U.S. government is evil. Not the government, but at least the history of the United States, right? It's a bunch of white male slave owners. And it's just they hate the government. They hate the United States as an entity. And how do you have nationalistic state that sends their young to die in a foreign war, if you've been teaching them in college, especially, that the United States is just a disgusting, racist, misogynist patriarchy. I mean, you can't do that and also support the military industrial complex. I mean, they can with bombs, but they can't with people.
You're not going to raise a generation of beta male cucks or ladyboy cunts who are going to go fight for this country. You're going to fucking send a dude in a dress to go fucking fight for this country? Fuck no, you're not. He's going to hide, or she's going to hide, or whatever you're going to call him. You're gonna take these people who you've been, like you said, who have been told like America's this terrible place and doesn't belong, to go fight and die for these wars. No, you're not, dude. You're not going to do that. And nor do I want ladyboy cunts or beta male cucks, fighting for this country. I don't want to see that at all. I would rather protect myself at that point. And as a matter of fact, the way U.S. foreign policy is going and they're meddling in all these different countries, don't think for 2 seconds that shit's not going to come find its way here. And at that point, you're going to need real men with real fucking balls, with real fucking guns, who are going to go protect them and theirs. Like, let's just put it this way. If China and Russia want to fuck around here in the United States, they're going to find out very fast why we are the largest standing militia in the world. Like, let's go there real quick. Like for real, like men, you're going to have to be men. The days are coming where good men are going to have to do bad things. And we're not looking for trouble. We don't want trouble. We don't want to do this. But don't think for 3 seconds people like me or people like Ben or anybody like us won't do whatever is necessary to protect our families. Because we will.
Well, I think that's the good part of the non-interventional Trumpism. He was the first Republican, at least in my lifetime, that actually said, no new wars, or I'm not going to get involved. Granted, he armed the Ukraine and he bombed, how many countries, but he said no new wars. And he made non-interventionalism acceptable for Republicans, which had never been the case before. And not only that, but he painted the left as warmongers, which they are, which they've become. I mean, the parties have essentially merged. I mean, that's why you see the Democrats, like, if you're on X, that's all they have is abortion, because that's the only thing that differentiates them from the Republicans is abortion. Like they're or Project 2025 or whatever that mysterious like fascistic government that Trump's gonna, whatever that is. They have to either make believe things or claim the one thing that actually separates the party, because there isn't anything else. There isn't anything else. That's what's crazy to me, is that anybody is this. If you're a hardcore Trump supporter, that's one thing. If you're a hardcore Republican, that's a different thing. Because I think if you're a hardcore Trump supporter, you're probably a libertarian. You just don't want to admit it. And if you're somebody who actually thinks for themselves, who is a hardcore Trump supporter, you can make excuses to vote for Trump. And I get all of those excuses. I totally do. The dude there was an attempted murder on the national TV. They tried to blow his brains out on national TV. The state tried to do that to this guy. I get that he is your Jesus, but you need to have principle, because what happened to Rittenhouse last weekend, where he sidestepped and he said, I'm writing in Ron Paul for my ballot.
Because of Trump's take on 2A.
Exactly.
Which is an abomination. Like, Trump and 2A are not like peanut butter and jelly at all.
He's not a gun rights activist. He is not a First Amendment person. And the shit he got from taking a stance, and yeah, he folded. He did fold.
He did
But
fold.
I hope to God that he got concessions because if there were promises made to him by the Trump campaign that said, you know what, Trump's going to be better and we were going to revoke X, Y, and Z, and that's better than most influential individuals in social media have gotten from any political office ever. I mean, if he can make Trump better on guns and on self-defense because he threatened to endorse Ron Paul, my immediate response was, what a fucking coward.
Right.
Like
That's
that
my
was my
response.
immediate, and I listened, I think it was a Dave Smith episode when they talked about it, and I think Robbie actually pointed it out, was said if he got concessions from the Trump campaign to say, yeah, we fucked up, we failed on guns, and we're going to be better the next time, and we promise to be better the next time if you support us, then good on Kyle Rittenhouse for making that argument and making that threat to say, I'm going to use my influence to sway voters in a different direction unless you be better. And if they're going to be better, then that's on him. I mean, he's already a hero for doing what he did. And if he can make Trump better on this, I mean, if Trump can get to the election and if he can actually serve for 4 years, I mean, there is a lot of, I don't know if it's misplaced hope. Um, Angela McArdle from the Libertarian Party, and you got Kyle Rittenhouse. We got a lot of influential people that are pushing Trump in the right direction, and he's made a lot of promises to freedom and to liberty. We'll see. We'll see. I don't, I know Kamala is going to not do anything. She won't even promise to deliver these things. And
She
is
doesn't
Trump
promise
gonna?
anything. All
No,
she's
nothing.
promised is that she's going to defeat Trump. She's literally come with no stances or standpoints or anything that has to do with like making things better other than she's going to defeat Trump. That's it. That's all she's come out with, which is actually very sorry. But like to your argument, when it comes to you know, you see maybe that if Trump comes through and says he's gonna renege on some of his old 2A stuff, like I have a hard time with that just because of the fact he's the people he's going to put in his cabinet. You look at the fact that Trump wants to put Jamie Dimon as the Fed chair and Larry Fink as Treasury Secretary, who Jamie Dimon is CEO of JP Morgan. Larry Fink is a CEO of BlackRock. So he's literally putting the worst of the worst of central bankers in his cabinet. I don't see any positive coming from that. I see more war. I see more money printing. I see more protections to the central banksters, I should call that. I'm not calling them central bankers anymore. They're central banksters because they're straight up gangsters. They are. They're the ones who run it all. So, like, you want to put people who would be higher up in charge than the United States president in the United States cabinet for that president? I don't see a net positive to that.
Well,
And
you've always had the major banks in control, but most often it's indirectly. This would be directly. I mean,
yes,
you could have. I mean, and there are so many other people like, man, a Peter Schiff for the Fed president, or there are people that you could really, but I don't know. You have to wonder, if I'm in his shoes and I'm giving a speech and I'm a 1 inch from my death and he has to know it was his government that did it. You have somebody like Thomas Massey who spoke out against the Zionist lobby. 2 weeks later, his wife dies from unknown causes, who was not sick. What does that do to a person? If the next threat is, we got your ear, we won't miss next time. Or to Thomas Massey, we poisoned your wife, the next is your kids. What do you do in that situation? And I mean, we can all sit here and say, well, I would stand up, but that's the power that they have. We don't live in a democracy. The republic died 100 years ago, and we have agencies that are saying if we can't bury you electronically just by porn on your computer or sexual harassment, but we can kill you and we can kill your family unless you bow. There's no hope. There's no hope. And that's just
somebody has to take a stand then and say, come and get me, motherfucker. That's what somebody needs to do then. Like you can't just keep bowing down and bowing down and bowing down. Somebody has to stand up and say, hey, these people are doing this, which is what Thomas
Massey issue is
kind of done. Thomas Massey
everybody has something to lose. That's the problem. I mean, if I'm Thomas Massey and I'm in a situation, and I'm not saying that actually happened, but the coincidence is ironic, right? He exposes the Israel lobby on Tucker Carlson, and a couple weeks later, his wife dies suddenly with no reason for it. I'm not like pretending a unicorn killed his wife here. Right. I'm saying like this is something that the Mossad does on a regular basis, and he's got kids. If I'm in that position that the love of my life is assassinated because I took a stand, and I know if I keep taking that stand, my kids die. Is that worth it? That's a struggle. And I mean, Thomas Massey is a hero beyond heroes. Like, even if
he's the greatest Republican who ever lived, honestly.
Well, even take away that the Mossad didn't kill his wife. Okay. Take that off the table and just say it was a sudden onset of pancreatic cancer or like whatever it may be. Like that's a purely non-dirty death. Okay.
But we've never been given a reason. We've always just been told she died suddenly. There was never
just anything. A sudden death, right? So but totally even the libertarian Jesus Ron Paul never had that. So to me, Thomas Massey's the GOAT, and I really hope he watches this episode because you are the GOAT. You are the GOAT, and the fact that you are still standing up for freedom and standing up for principle is, man, you can't, man, the guy, he's untouchable. And any freedom lovers, I mean, if you are like, oh, he's a Republican, fuck you. All right. Fuck you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that, because we need to get past the purist mindset. And I've been going through this personally myself. Okay. A lot of libertarian purists have a problem with me right now. A lot of anarchist purists have a problem with me right now because I have been kind of vocal saying, hey, we need to play in the sandbox with these other people if we are going to, move our movement forward. It's the only way. If we only talk about this shit amongst ourselves, we're going nowhere. Nowhere. Zero, zip, nada. This is going nowhere. We'll be the same assholes on the same podcast talking the same shit every week that nobody gives a fuck about. At a certain point, we have to go play in the sandbox with the Republicans and Democrats and get our message out. Period.
Are you for principle?
Fuck yourself, purist.
Are you for principle or for party? Because that's what it comes down to. Are you for liberty or libertarians? Or the Libertarian Party or the Republican Party?
The Libertarians aren't even for principle half the time. Like I said this on the Rechtenwald show, half the Libertarian Party and probably more is a group of retards who just want to keep their social club going and a reason to bitch online. I'm sorry, guys. you're never going to win that way. It's never going to work. And as a matter of fact, the more of a piece of shit you are to the other people, the more they're going to hate you and not listen to you. We need to get better with our messaging. I'm one included. Like I say this all the time. I'm not the fucking super anarchist, super libertarian. I'm not. I'm not, because I do have some stances that, some would think are grotesque when it comes to like open borders and it comes to like abortion and shit like that.
Well, that's
I
the
don't
thing is like
necessarily feel those ways that I used to about those things.
if
Just
you
because you read a few books on Rothbard or Mises or Lou Rockwell or, Robert Nosnick or whatever it may be, just because you read those books and got some philosophy in you doesn't mean you're the super libertarian or you're the super anarchist. It just
but
means you got some philosophy brought up in you. You
right.
need to get to the real world and be with real people and deal with real shit, which is
If you can't stand on principle, are you a libertarian?
you're not.
I don't, to me, I mean, I hate that you're not a real libertarian argument. All right. I fucking hate that argument. But if you are not principled and you're not willing to stand on that principle, fuck you. Like, whether you claim to be a libertarian or not, like, fuck you. Like, either you're principled or not. And that to me, that is that's the white pill or the like litmus test of any person, man, woman, child. Stand on your principle. And even if you're an AOC, all right, and you are like, I am for the Green New Deal, and I think I could tax the rich, and that will solve everything. Stand on that principle. All right. I will respect you for standing that. You can be an ignorant fuck, but you stand on your principle. I'll respect you. If you're a Bernie Sanders, who are like, I'm anti-war, and then I vote every dime to Israel, and then I go on a press conference being like, those Israels, like, fuck you. That's what I care about is principle. I don't care about party. I don't care about rhetoric. I care about principle.
Which is the way it should be. Like I said a million times before, when it comes to the liberty movement, yes. When it comes to the actual Libertarian Party, not so much. I have a hard time with the Libertarian Party now, honestly, and that comes with a lot of receipts and a lot of things I've been through with the Libertarian Party. Like I'm one of those people who, for the past 4 years in general, like in a nutshell, I have given my entire life, my entire time, my entire everything to the Libertarian Party just for them to throw my work in my face. Okay. So at that point, like, that's when I realized, hey, it's not about the party anymore. It is about the principles. The principles are important. Are you for leaving peaceful people alone? Fuck yeah, I am. Are you for, pushing, self-defense forward? Fuck yeah, I am. Are you willing to push free speech forward? Fuck yes, I am. Are you willing to abolish the government? Fuck yes, I am. Um, you know, and my anarchist side of me wants to, destroy all forms of government. That's me as an anarchist. Is that government isn't working. This isn't how it's going to go. Whatever. But would I be okay with the abolishing of the federal government and letting the states run as they see fit? That would be a huge step forward, and I would take that. I would definitely take that.
Or
You
just
know,
the embellishment of the Department of Education at the federal level.
yes,
That's like, I think we, especially anarchists, get so like Jacob Hornberger comes to mind. They're so purists that if even incremental improvements are not worth pursuing because the goal is complete destruction. And I'll take incremental improvements.
you
And
can't
so
get
like,
complete construction or complete destruction without the incremental improvements. I just had this conversation with some voluntarists. Like we have a huge voluntarist group here in Michigan, MPLF. They're great. That's a great organization. They actually have their own type of pork fest here. here in Michigan that most don't know about. It's just on the voluntarist side of things rather than the libertarian side of things. But libertarians, voluntarists, anarchists, ANCAPs, whatever you want to call yourself, it's kind of all the same bubble. We can get there. We could totally get there together. Just some people are not willing to, I don't want to say compromise, but like we're not going to go from one extreme to the other overnight. So you kind of got to, hey, yo. So let's break down the Department of Education. Let's get rid of the 3-letter acronyms. Let's get rid of the federal government and let the states do what they need to do. And there's going to be red states and there's going to be blue states, and people are not going to be happy. But you can always sell your shit and go to your red state or your blue state if you're not happy.
Well, even that, like, we should minimize even the state ability to make dictations. Like dictatorial, like authoritarianism shouldn't even be at the state level. Like we want massive collapse of that environment, and like, man, let's bring that to the county level. Even better than that, let's get that to the town, the village.
Township liberation. Yes.
So yes. I'm going to say right now to anyone who lives around in these areas. So I live in Iona County. I am running for the a board of trustees for the Lake Odessa Village where I live, and that's the kind of stuff where I can make. I'm already in the Village Planning Commission, but being on the Village Board of Trustees, I actually have a say on the direction of my village, and that's my call to libertarians is, I'm also running a paper candidacy for District, 2 for the U.S. Congress. All right. Not going to happen. But I am not going to sit there and be like, that's the rock I'm standing on. That validates me as a libertarian. That makes me special. No, that's a paper candidacy. I just need to be on the ballot. Fuck that. I'm also running for my local village council where I actually make a decision on how my local community operates. That's what I want libertarians to look at. Because if you're just in it for yourself and just a name because I'm running for Secretary of State, I'm running for governor, I got 1.2%. That was 0.5% better than last year. Fuck off. Do something different.
Right.
Get something that you can actually make an impact on. I'm so tired of libertarians running on those tickets. Yeah, some of those tickets are necessary, but they're not. They do nothing. They make nothing. There is no impact. You are worthless. You're just a face on a screen. Grow some balls and do something that actually matters. And that's my challenge for libertarians. I'm so tired of being excited for paper candidacies. Those are necessary. I'm not saying they aren't. They are necessary, and they need to occur. And thank you for everybody that is on the 2024 slate of Libertarian Parties of Michigan candidacy vouchers and ballots. That just, it takes some stones just to have your name out there. So thank you for that. But it shouldn't stop there. You need to be better than just a paper candidacy.
Well, that's the problem with libertarians is they're okay with being the greatest losers, right?
Yep, exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, we just want to get 5% of the vote. Okay, cool. Well, what do you do with your 5%? Because you're not winning, you're not doing anything. And if you only got your message to 5% of the people, how is that winning? Right? It's not. So like, here's my thing. And I'm not making any promises to anybody because I'm not too sure where I'm going to be in 2026. I might be the fuck out of Michigan. But if for some reason I am stuck here in 2026, I am most likely, and now I'm going to put this out in the world, if I'm stuck here in Michigan when 2026 comes around, I am running for governor. And I am going to run on the most radical platform that has ever been run on in the United States, period.
And as the communications director for the Libertarian Party of Michigan, I will be your mouthpiece. So that's the kind of stuff. I know that you're
And I'm
not
not going to
expecting
play.
to win.
I'm not going to try to just get 5% of the votes. I'm going to play to win.
But
Whether it's real or not, that's not, I don't care. But
but
I am going
the
to be in it to win. If I do this, I'm giving my all and I'm going to try to win.
But the win is the real win, whether you do or not, is you're educating the public on what liberty is. Because liberty is not voting for Republican and Democrat. That's not liberty. That's staying in the system. That's a matrix. You are voting between a red pill or red pill. That's not winning. That's just the lesser of two evils. And I think that's the beauty of positions of like Secretary of State and governorship is not necessarily like it's about education. It's about like another choice. It's the say that like no, there is an option for actual liberty because especially if we look at 2026, we're 2 years into a potential Trump second presidency, right? And I think we can both agree that's going to be a mirror of his first presidency. He's going to install swamp creatures. He's going to continue to bomb other. Maybe he won't start World War III, but it's just going to be George W. Bush, right? That's where somebody who is speaking out in Michigan to say like, fuck Gretchen Whitmer, fuck these bought and paid for politicians. There's another choice. And that's the beauty of like, man, I would be so excited. I really hope you can stick around because like BudsnReality presidency in Michigan, not presidency, governorship, but like that campaign could like, man, there are so many people that could get off their asses and be like, no, I'm voting for real liberty.
I would literally be the most radical fucking uh, you know, governor candidate that has ever been seen in the history of anything ever, because I will shut the shit down. I will shut it all down. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not even necessarily a libertarian. I'm an anarcho-capitalist who believes in free market capitalism, who believes that the state shouldn't be involved in your everyday lives. That's what I believe. And that doesn't even matter if I'm running for a political office or not. I don't want to run for office at all. It's the last thing I want to do. Honestly, it's not something that I want in my life. I don't need that kind of smoke coming towards me. I don't need those type of shit in my business. But like, also at the end of the day, like somebody has to change things. Somebody has to at least try to change things, and nobody is doing that. No one. No one. We saw, in 2022 with Mary Bazuma, who ran as governor as a libertarian in 2022. Terrible candidate. Awful. Awful. She wasn't serious. It was one of those, let's just get it, paper person on the ballot, whatever.
Part of that, I will defend her in a little bit in the fact that there was no actual support from her run. Um, the party was already in disarray and there was no support. But I think, going back to your thesis of like running for an office like that, that's what I would challenge you. And I challenge anybody else, start local, get on an uncontested seat in your local authority. You need to like, people need to understand one of the things that kind of drove me crazy. We had an internship at the hospital system that I worked for, and he was hoping to walk into a vice president position at my hospital. And his resume, he was a lifeguard in high school. And he thought with a master's degree, he could become a vice president right out of college. And I'm like, I had to shoot him down real fast. And so anybody who is looking for lofty goals in any type of government positions, you have to start local. You have to build your brand. You have to build your resume. So find something that you can walk into. I walked into my local village planning commission. It was an open seat. I said I'd like to fill that seat, and I was on that commission the next day. And if it wasn't from that, there's no way I could run from my local village board of directors. And if it wasn't for that, I would never be able to get on my county seat in any authoritarian position. And if I didn't do that, there's no way I could run for Congress or Senate or House in my state. You have to build a brand, you have to build a resume. And so for anybody out there that really wants to make waves and to be someone, start local, start making an impact. Just in my village planning commission, there was something that was against tattoo parlors, and it wasn't allowed within village limits. I helped get it. I helped get that overturned, so a new local business could start a tattoo parlor. That's going to go on my resume, because now that I'm running for village council, I can say, look what I did for the village as a new taxable income. And then as a village council member, maybe I get to put in a farmer's market and say, look at what we've done on Saturdays for the village. And that's where I'm going to stop. But maybe you or maybe someone else is, no, I want to keep that going. But for me, shit hits the fan and I'm on the village council and I can make an impact of like, hey, let's tighten up. Who's got guns? We've got local police. We've got a local farmers market. We've got local farmers. Can we be self-sufficient? All right. We don't need Grand Rapids. We don't need Detroit or Lansing. All of a sudden, we're going to protect our own. We're going to barter. We got a barter system involved. There is so many things that can be done on a local level that is, to me, that is exciting for freedom. And that's shit can
Yes.
be very, very scary moving forward, right? World War III, the de-dollarization, massive inflation. I mean, it's going to be very scary for us and in the next generation, but
Yes, but
we
if you
can
set
make an
yourself
impact.
up, if you
We
set
can make an
yourself up
impact.
locally with parallel economies and alternative currencies, a lot of the stuff they're doing at a federal level won't matter. Like when we're talking about nullification, I'm talking about nullification from the state, and not only nullification from the federal state, nullification from your own state. Like hypothetically, say I'm governor of Michigan, I win for some reason, and Berkeley, Michigan says, "Hey, we're not down with what you're doing, Sean. We're going to nullify ourselves from you." I'm going to say, "Hey, knock yourselves out. Go for it. Nullify yourselves. Go for it. Do what you want." And that's how you do it. Like when we talk about nullification, that at this standpoint where we are as a people, nullification is the only way that people win at this point. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
But
You have to
not
nullify
just like
yourselves.
people, but individuals. Nullification wins for individuals. And that's what we should be focused on, is the individual. Because if we can say, fuck you to any state authority, county, state, whatever it may be, especially if you're in a local governance system, like that's the beauty about being in a village with our own police force. We rely on nothing from the state. And if shit goes south, we're independent. That's where community means everything. So again, get plugged into your local community. Make sure you're in a good local community, because there are some communities, if you're in, disgusting authoritarian blue or right wing community, I think blue tends to be more right wing than the right wing does these days. But make sure you're in the right area. Like surround yourself with like minded people and put yourself in a position of authority where you have a chance to make an impact. And that's what libertarians should be focused on, is let's make an impact for where we live, because that's going to affect my kids and me. And not just that, but like that's going to impact the local communities, the businesses, the churches, the nonprofits that are around me. Um, I'd much rather spend my time and effort and money on something like that than something that is unattainable. Even though those are important, those still are important because there is an educational aspect to those, but go local. Find something that you can make an impact locally. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you have to run for it or you be nominated for it. Just make an impact. Um,
And you don't
and
even have to be a libertarian to do it. That's the thing. Like, you don't necessarily have to be a libertarian. I understand that's far-fetched idea for a ton of people, but you could be a liberty-minded Republican or a liberty-minded Democrat even, because there are some of those out there. Like, dude, I had the greatest conversation with a leftist ever just the other day on X. Actually, the greatest conversation I've ever had with a leftist. You know, there was one downfall to the conversation, but like, they literally agreed with everything I was spitting. They just were dead set on me voting Democrat. And I was like, well, you're almost there. I'm like, you're really close. You're so close. I'm not going to vote Democrat. I'm sorry. I'm not voting, at all. But like, if you understand that the idea of government is bad, and that the idea of them running your lives and running the monetary system and running, all of it pretty much is bad, you're on the right path. You're just a little bit misguided, and we'll get you there. It's just a little more reading, a little more, talking to liberty-minded people.
well, to your point, like even if you don't want to run for office, start a podcast. That's not a hard, something to overcome. And if you have an idea of starting a podcast, reach out to us. Like, let us help you spread the message because we are all on the same team here. We're all we're all driving to the same destination. I mean, we may get off at different stops. Sean may be a more hardcore anarchist than I am, but that's the destination, right? And so I may get off at a different stop than he is, but we're going in the same direction. And I think if we can get more people on that train going in that direction and spreading that message of like, fuck authoritarians, we win. We all win.
Or we just all get off at massage parlors like normal people do. No, just
But hey, again,
sorry,
we all
guys.
win.
I
We
had to throw
all
that in there.
win.
I got jokes. I come with jokes. They're not always funny, but I have some. But like, no, there's a lot of people from both sides are just that close. They're so close. They see it. They see the corruption. They see the taxation. They see the endless wars. They see the endless surveillance, and they're like, what the hell? And a vast majority of America knows, actually a vast majority does know that our current system is fucked up, because a vast majority of people in 2020 did not vote. A majority of Americans did not vote in 2020. And I would imagine that number is going to be larger this time because they're very lost. Like, I know that the left, in particular, the left has really pissed off their tribe, because the one thing that they spoke of, democracy, they need to fight for democracy and democracy and democracy. They're not giving their voter base a choice, which is not democracy. And they're starting to see that now. They were forced with Joe Biden, and now they're forced with Kamala Harris, and they're all going, hey, man, wait a minute here. What about us? There's a lot of Marianne Williamson supporters out there. There's a lot of, quote unquote, not to say that she was the best or not the best. As a matter of fact, I would say that she was a much better choice than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. I would give Marianne Williamson that much credit. RFK was a very much better choice than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. He was just a little bit too far-fetched for the Democrats with his vaccine and stuff like that, whatever. But he's very much a progressive, but the DNC is dead set on giving their voter base what they want to give them. They don't want to give them a choice, which isn't democracy at all. And now they're seeing it. I know plenty of Democrats who are disheartened. They're either not voting at all, they're voting for RFK. I don't see too many people say they're going to vote for Chase Oliver from the Democrat Party, mostly because they probably don't know about him. And I'm not going to be the first one to say, hey, man, there's this guy out there just because of what I believe. Do your thing. Like 4 years ago, I would have got very furious. Oh, you're voting for Trump. Oh, you're a fucker. Oh, you're voting for fucking Biden. Oh, you're a piece of shit. Whatever. Now I'm at a point where I don't care who you vote for because I know we're not voting out of this. We're not getting our way out of this at the voting booths. Sorry, guys. It's just the truth. So what we need to do is, you know, start joining forces and start educating people, and start talking to people outside of, people who are outside of our political beliefs, because we are more alike than different,
100%.
you know,
I I think the
you
only
were
thing that
very much on board with the where you and I disagreed on the convention was uh, the Trump thing. You were very much on board with that. I was very much against that, and I still am. But I get it. I do get it, because we do have to play with people outside of the sandbox, or
and if we
inside the
can,
sandbox, I should
and
say.
it kind of like going back to the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, like if we can move a candidate like Trump to be better on something, it's not a it's not a guarantee he's going to actually act on it, right? They're still politicians, they still make promises and fuck all. But at the same time, he's been moved by libertarians and libertarian ideas this time around way more than he was in 2016. The whole like free Ross, the whole idea of alternative currencies, the idea of like being anti-war, being actually anti-war, and being like against, like Vivek has done probably more for his candidacy. Now again, are they going to listen to him? Who knows? If he doesn't get seated in a position of power in that cabinet, we can all guarantee it's going to be a 2.0 Trump presidency, because he's the guy who's like, we need to dismantle the federal government by 50% in the first 90 days.
And
He's the
get rid of
first
all the
guy who's
three-letter
ever said it.
acronyms. He's like, there's no reforming the FBI, there's no reforming the ATF
They're
and
done.
CIA. He's like, no, they have to go, which I am very much on board on.
Yep.
You know,
Let's they can go patrol the border. Like, I mean, we're not going to necessarily cut all those jobs, but we're going to put them into positions where they might actually have some actual worthwhile, as opposed to spying on and killing Americans. Like, that there is hope, but it's hope at this point. I mean, we don't know. The fact that they're trying to actively kill him shows that hope is not unfounded, um, which is a good thing. But again, we're in a banana republic at this point, right? I mean, this is democracy's dead. Republic has died a long time ago. We're in a demand. It's just like survival of the fittest at this point in the political world. Who do you kiss the biggest ass to get the biggest payday? Um, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about too much. One thing I did want to talk about, kind of going back to money. Um, so I think anybody who are big Bitcoin followers have seen that Bitcoin follows tech stocks, and they are not, it's digital currency is not a hedge against inflation or hedge against volatility. What I'm going to say is I just bought more of this. So this is silver.
it's blurry.
If
Pull it
my
back. Pull it back a
camera
little
will
bit.
focus on it. This is a 1 ounce Canadian silver maple leaf. Maple leaf. It did for a second. Um, it's probably because I have face focus priority. There we
Oh,
go.
there it is. We have a shot. It says Canada as the maple leaf, and that's 1 ounce of silver.
So that right now is still at about, I think you can get it for 29 or $32 an ounce. They have been suppressing silver because silver is a big component of missiles. Funny enough, they don't want silver to get too expensive because then the military industrial complex doesn't get big profits, right? What the benefit is to you as a consumer is silver's cheap, especially when it comes to gold. So when I started buying gold, it was around 16 to $1,900 an ounce, and silver was $28 an ounce or an ounce. And now gold's touching on a regular basis to $2,500 an ounce.
Close, yes.
Silver is still $28 and $29 an ounce. They're suppressing it because it is a required element for their bombs. So take advantage and buy some silver. Again, being in Michigan, Canadian silver tends, I think will hold its value here as a medium of exchange. But you know what? If you have the chance of like just $100 here, $100 there, if you can buy silver, once silver catches up with gold when it comes to like historical perspectives, because there's always been a range between silver and gold. Silver has always been the poor man's gold. And because it has a lot more industrial usage, it tends and it's more easily mined. It tends to be lower than gold, but we are way out of whack right now when it comes between silver and gold, and so gold should be much more like $40 to $50 an ounce, and they're suppressing it because of the use in military weapons. Once that suppression breaks and they can't hide it anymore, silver is going to skyrocket. And
Projections
that's
show 150 an ounce by next year. 2025,
it
silver's
very
going to
well
be at
could be.
150 an ounce. So you're going to make your money back tenfold. You go into silver right now, when it like you said, gold's roughly, I think I saw roughly 24.50 as of today, on recording day, obviously, which is August 6th is recording day.
So if you can buy into precious metals, buy silver. You definitely get a better rate the bigger you buy. So like a 10-ounce bar, 100-ounce, like it's going to be heavier. It's going to be more expensive to ship, but you're going to get a better rate on it. Though why I like 1-ounce rounds, especially when it comes to the maple leaf, is it's a lot cheaper to the US 1-ounce round, and it's the same purity, but also it's portability and it's bartership. If I have to go to a local farmer's market and I need a pig, I can use this. This now becomes money in a bartership economy because it is actual wealth. And so, if you're looking to um, invest in something you can hold, because if you can't hold it, you don't own it. And that's one of my biggest things against any digital currencies is it may be letters on a blockchain that you have on a zip drive. It still requires an astronomical amount of energy to produce, and that energy is not captured that you can reproduce. And God forbid the internet goes down like we had just a couple weeks ago. Your digital currency is worth nothing if you don't have internet. Your gold, your silver, your precious metals, you can barter that with your neighbor. You can barter that with somebody on the other side of the world. It will never lose its value. So buy silver. I can't stress that enough because I don't think it's going to last long at these prices. And it really allows you to operate outside of the system, especially when they are going to push for a CBDC with the UBC as that gatekeeping, like, oh, here, we'll give you $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month with a CBDC coin from the Federal Reserve. But you can only use it for food and mortgage. You can't buy gold or silver with it. Sorry. So buy it now while you can. It's still at discount prices, and I can't stress that enough.
And I will back you 100% when it comes to that, you know. And this is the white pill from this whole show. You know, we've been blackpilling you guys this whole time. When we talk about parallel economies and alternative currencies, you hit the nail on the head. A parallel economy is a farmer's market. A parallel economy is buying from your local farmer. It's a black market. Like when I say make black markets great, that doesn't mean I'm telling you to buy stolen goods from some guy in the hood, right? It means I'm telling you to go get your stuff, your everyday needs from your farmers market, from your farmers, from your neighbors. I mean, some man's trash is another man's treasure. Like there's a lot to be said about that. You know, Facebook Marketplace. You know, as much as I hate Facebook, but like Marketplace is a parallel economy because it's people selling some stuff under the radar untaxed, which is a place to be. Like if you can literally cut the government's legs off from underneath them, you are doing your part, you know.
That's
And
how we win.
that is a huge win. That's why I'm like, you know, telling you guys, and like Ben says, yo, go get yourself some gold and silver. Go get yourself some copper. Copper, oh my God, copper number one is cheap, 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 way cheaper than silver, but has been gaining wealth tenfold. Like copper has gone up tenfold.
Yeah,
So I
you
mean,
can get 1 ounce copper rounds as well from most mints. So I've stocked up on copper, 1 ounce copper coins. And to your point, where they are like a couple bucks and it's just going through the roof. So people need to understand, especially if you have a lot of your retirement accounts, take a look at your 401ks, 401(k)s, whatever it may be, because I guarantee you your retirement accounts are invested in company debt. It's
yes.
debt. They are CDs, they are stocks. Those are a promise to pay. It's not assets. It is not real. It is all debt. So if you can get in and find a way to control your retirement account, and whether it's even in an ETF, which isn't, it's not the greatest because that can be seized, as opposed to actual physical income or physical money. But if you can get into something that is not debt, get into actual assets in your retirement accounts. Whether it's oil, whether it is land, whether it is metals, and it's going to be hard to find because most 401ks and 401(k)s are only going to offer debt instruments because that's what props up our economy. It's all about debt. If people got out of debt, the house of cards falls apart, and that's what we've kind of seen over the last couple days. But that's the only thing you're going to survive. I had 40K in a 401k in 2008, and I lost everything. And as a young person in my 30s, I could afford it. But if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're still working, and your 401k is at like 200,000, 300,000, 400, half a million, and it's all in company debt, you're fucked. You need
Yep.
to wake up and find real assets for those accounts because you're going to be destroyed.
And that's a fact. And I don't see any other way, you know, better way to close out this show from there. Like, you know, you guys, the people who are listening to this show, I love you guys so much. And even my haters, man, I love you too, man. I know there's a lot of you out there. I know you've been talking shit. I see you out there, which, by the way, thank you for listening to my show. You just make my numbers better. But no, seriously though, you guys, I love you guys so much. You guys really need to really start thinking about doing something different with your finances and how you're going to go about things going forward, because the way things are going right now, it's not good. But Ben, before we go, how can we find you and how can we find Andy, even though he stole you away from me? No, I'm just kidding, Andy. Love you long time.
First off, I'm always going to be your second guest. If you need somebody, I'm always going to be here. I don't have a life. It's this single dad syndrome, and I really appreciate it because these the kind of things that I live for, and so I'm always happy and welcome to be on your show. But anyhow, Andy and I, we have the We Love the State podcast. Feel free to check us out on any of your social media streams. Mostly it's wheelofthestate.com, although the website's still in development. But you can find us on any of your podcast streams, also on Rumble and YouTube. But again, thank you for the venue. Thank you for everything you do, Sean, for spreading liberty. And, that's the thing is people need to understand that there's another way. They don't have to be stuck. There is another option, and thinking outside the box should be the norm now. It shouldn't be the default, or it shouldn't be the exception to the rule. It should be the default. And so, podcasts like yours make that true. And so thank you everybody who's listening. Hopefully that, this episode has been value added, and, I can't wait for many more.
I mean, there's going to be many more. I look forward to tag teaming with you guys. That's going to be a lot of fun. I am going to give Andy shit for stealing you from me, kind of. But Andy, stop it. No, I'm just kidding, y'all. No, I think I'm so glad you guys got the band back together. I know you missed it, and I know you hated doing it by yourself when you were doing that. I totally get that. I don't want to do it by myself either, ever. Who wants to hear themselves talk, really? It kind of sucks. But, until next week, you guys, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Peace, love, and liberty. Be good.